KSAT Community Town Hall, and of course scams come in all shapes and sizes, from phone calls, emails, text messages, and impersonation. So the scammers may switch up their tricks, but the game, it's always the same. And yet, even though we know better, we sometimes keep falling for them. So today we're going to break down how these scams work so you can spot them before they spot you. And we're joined by Jason Massa from the Better Business Bureau. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, thank you for having us.
Thank you. And also Brian Munster-Tiger from RBFCU.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we have our experts here stand by. We're going to talk to them in just a minute. But before we get started, I want to let our viewers know that you can join the conversation on YouTube during this live stream. So you can chat with us during the live event and share your thoughts or questions in real time. We're going to try to address your questions or comments with our panelists during the show, so stay tuned. And of course, scams, again, can trick anyone, no matter how smart you are. So they can be very deceptive and also convincing. So let's go ahead and get into the questioning here. So this question is for the both of you, and we're going to say, it may seem like a very foundational question, and of course we're going to let you both answer. So what is the difference between a scam and fraud, and can you give us examples of each? And I guess we'll start with you, Jason.
Sure. Well, the anatomy of a scam hasn't really changed since we were founded back in 1912 with the Better Business Bureau. Basically deception by design, whether it can come in any technological form. Now we're with AI, now we got social media, so it's advanced like crazy. And the hard part is proving that fraud existed. If you make a purchase or transaction, how to walk that backwards. That is incredible, getting tougher arguably to do. And so again, the anatomy of a scam hasn't changed. Deception by design. They're trying to get that gotcha moment, trying to separate you from your money or your information. And unfortunately, it's getting worse than before it gets better.
Yeah, we see a lot of the stories now. And same, question towards you, Brian,
Yeah.
the difference between a scam and fraud, and giving us examples of each.
Yeah, I like to say that all scams are fraud, but not all fraud is scams. So scams are a subset of fraud, where typically the consumer is duped into actually conducting the transaction themselves, whether that's moving money or buying gift cards, whatever depending on the type of scam, but they're actually the one conducting the scam, which is what we see a lot of at RBFCU, where they're tricked into actually doing it themselves.
And can you explain how scams fit into the broader category of fraud, and kind of what distinguishes the scams from other types of fraud?
Yeah, I think scams like that, where they're getting the consumer to actually conduct the transaction, have become more popular for fraudsters and scammers, because if you think about it, they're harder for financial institutions to detect, because you're using the device that you always use in some occasions. You're in the same location that you typically are. A lot of those things, that's how we detect a lot of what fraud that happens. And if you're using your own device and you're in the same location that you typically are, that's harder for us to detect, which is exactly why fraudsters have used trying to use scams as a good way to get access to people's money.
And then Jason, tell us if you're seeing, when it comes to the scammers, and how they're upgrading their tactics to trick even the most alert people who are, on top of their game.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of great, smart people getting duped into making a purchase. Now we're telling our youngsters their personal identification, their information is more powerful than the money in their wallet. Once you separate with that, it can go 20 different directions. So we're constantly having to walk people backwards and see, now with AI, with deep fake technology, it is crazy hard to detect what's real and what's not. And again, we're getting people all the time that say, well, I got this request, it looks real, it feels real, is it a scam? And half the time I have to tell, well, you might have entered your information into a marketing, you maybe tried to win a truck or something at the mall, you put your information down willingly, and that information got shared so many different ways, and it's now on the dark web. So it's hard to really tell what is the scam, and if it's just a clever marketing technique sometimes.
Especially now.
Yeah.
I feel like there's more out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took this to our viewers, when we asked how you'd handle a scam if you encountered one, most of you actually got it right. So let's go ahead and take a look at your report here. So 86% of you said that you would report it immediately. However, 14% said they would just ignore it and keep going. So on that note, Brian and Jason, let's talk about why reporting matters and how it helps protect all of us. And we'll start with you, Brian.
Yeah, sure. Reporting it, as far as reporting it to your financial institution, to the fraud department, is extremely important, because it opens our eyes to what's going on. And if it is a fake website, or especially if it's a link that is false, if it's a spoofing link, you reporting it can potentially help others that might have fell for it in the future. Specifically for our BFCU, we have abuse at our BFCU, which is an email that we can report emails, text messages, anything that you get that you feel like is a scam. That's a good way to report it.
And same question to you, Jason. Why is it so important for people to report scams?
Well, I dislike people being isolated, meaning if something happens, they just kind of pass it off because the next person will trip on that same type of scenario. So reporting it's important. Where you go is also important. There's people that track the information, that kind of watch for patterns. If it's a one-off, it might not play out again. But if it's a pattern with kind of the same name, they're using the same setup, we want to hear about those. The FTC is the ultimate prosecutorial arm for fraud in the nation, but agencies like your Better Business Bureau want that. We need it. We survive with the pulse of the community. So if we don't know what's going on the street, we can't form a good pattern and say, listen, guys, I think you should track this because it's creeping up on us.
And then, some people are thinking, oh, that won't happen to me when they see these stories on the news. But let's talk about vulnerability here. So who is the most targeted group? How do scammers and fraudsters adapt their tactics also to target different people? And what should everyone know about the fact that anyone can be a potential victim? So I've heard, what targeted group that all groups, everybody can be a victim of a scam.
Yeah.
But on that note, let's go ahead and see, how do the scammers and fraudsters adapt their tactics to target different people? And we'll start with you first, Jason.
Yeah, maybe 10 years ago I would have picked on senior consumers who just aren't as savvy for technology, but now it is everybody. Our younger consumers are so tethered to tech. They're swiping left and right. Yeah, sure, share my information. Yes, open up an app. Yes, and it's super sharing, unfortunately. So everybody's vulnerable. Everybody will fall at some point or will get encountered with a scam, whether they hand over the keys to their info or money, to be determined. But again, if you see something, say something like our law enforcement tells us. That way the next guy will say, okay, I thought I heard about this, and share it with your family and friends.
I think the one thing to point out is the fraudsters are really keen on what time of year it is and how to take advantage of that. So we're in the holiday season now. We're all super busy. We're having a lot of packages delivered. We're doing a lot of online shopping. Those are two things that they'll take advantage of. Another good example is over the summer, the toll road scams that most of us got the text messages for.
Yes, we did too.
Well, what are you doing during the summer? You're traveling a lot, right? So it's a good opportunity to take advantage of that. So those are two examples, but they do it all year long as far as taking advantage of what's going on and how we can hone in, not necessarily to the demographics like Jason was saying. I think it pretty much spreads across everyone, but the time of year is super important and it works.
That's true. Time of year and type of scam, I guess.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, when we're all potential victims out there. So again, on this note, we've heard some really helpful tips about reporting scams and how scammers can pick their target. And now let's switch gears and talk about a real story here. So a woman whose dream vacation almost turned into a $1,500 nightmare. So luckily, her quick thinking saved the day. So let's hear what happened here. Tony tells us she and her husband love to travel, so when they got the call about a type of travel that they had booked in the past, they wanted to try it again. But when they tried to book it, something didn't seem right.
When we tried to actually book the travel and then get in touch with someone, that's when it started to become a little bit difficult.
They were first told to go online and to fill out the dates that they wanted, and they didn't get a response for a while until they finally got a text message, which was their first red flag. A woman named Gabriella texted that she would help book the trip through text message only.
That was kind of like my first red flag, because businesses don't normally send text messages or operate through text messaging.
However, Tony did contact customer service only to find out from their booking representative that they didn't have the exact dates or the exact package that they initially paid for. And the representative started talking about additional fees. So Tony asked for a refund, which the representative refused. That's when Tony reached out to her credit card company, and after an investigation, she got her money back.
It was very frustrating. It took a lot of time, and I was so upset. I was like, I'm going to report these people. So that's why I went to the Better Business Bureau and wrote up a little thing on them. I think that was probably the first time I've ever did something like that, because I wanted people to be aware and people to know of what's going on out here.
Well, again, Tony had mentioned if it hadn't been for her credit card company, she would have been out more than $1,500. In fact, that is a piece of advice on your website, the San Antonio Better Business Bureau has on their website. So if you pay with a credit card, that is probably recommended because it is easier to dispute fraudulent charges later, and you can hear more about that, of course, how to protect yourself, on our website at ksatcommunity.com. But Jason, Tony had mentioned that receiving text messages from someone claiming to help with her travel booking was a big red flag.
Yeah, I heard a couple of red flags in there, but the travel scam is very popular. Go to one website and it'll handle everything. But when you show up for the flight, there's no name, there's no booking, same thing with your hotel. So these wonder websites pop up, and they moved her off the platform. They moved her to text message. That was another thing. They kind of took her off her native platform. And then, yes, asking for money, trying to press, and then at the same, there's always pressure, but at the same time, her credit card company, arguably it's a third-party merchant that's holding money, and they want to be informed, and they want to freeze or hold the charges as well as you would. So they're happy to help if not dispute the charge, freeze the card, send you a new one. So arguably it's getting better, and especially in the banking world, the financial institution world, it's getting better. They're being more helpful to help you notice these signs that pop up, especially with Tony's. I'm glad she got her money back.
Yes.
It doesn't happen 5 to 10% of the time.
Oh yeah, this is a better story, I
Yes.
guess, if you will, because in the
Right.
fact that she did get her money back.
Mm-hmm.
But and just speaking about this particular, so both of you give a bit of insight as to what the most common warning signs of travel scams that consumers should watch out for. Brian, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest signs in general is just to be really cognizant of the information that you're giving away. And if, the old adage, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If you're getting a super good deal that is, 10% of what you normally would pay for, whether it's travel or anything, online shopping, I think that is a huge, huge red flag to look out for.
And then on the same note, with the insight on this.
We all want the bargain, we all want a good deal, but at what price will you sacrifice that? So if you're willing to hand over your information, go into a hopper of sorts where you might get different, competing results. Yes, so definitely, I would say bounce it off several websites. Don't take the first knock at the door, the first bait, if you will. Compare it with other travel websites. And in the end, if you're gonna pay, again, use your credit card. Use a card where you can help dispute the charge. If you're gonna use anything like your peer-to-peer payment systems, only for family and friends, we say, like the Zells, your PayPals, only set those up for someone you've met in person. Otherwise, it's dangerous because you've added another level to try and dispute that charge.
And also with the Better Business Bureau, how can the Better Business Bureau help people avoid or report these scams?
Well, step one, we want to hear about it. Step one, we need the information. We need every piece of information you give, names, phone numbers, emails, what they used, and we'll put that into a model we've seen, and if it fits a category, step two is we try to outreach and say, look, these are the tips to help. Start with your bank, start with the reporting it up. And step three is usually asking you to share it or to help us understand the situation better. So step 1, 2, 3. Like Tony's situation, she went to step 3 where she actively came to us and shared everything. We got on the phone with her. She reached out to you as well. So I'm glad she shared, because otherwise we don't get that. Arguably people are not stepping forward enough and sharing. They're underreporting these scams.
And with her sharing, that helps other people out there. So that's why another reason why it's important to report.
Correct.
Yep.
Well, again, for everybody, don't forget you can join that conversation during this live stream. Our town hall is streaming right now on YouTube also, so you can chat with us. Go ahead and share your thoughts in real time. We're going to try to address those questions or comments, of course, with our panelists here during today's show. And all right, let's take a little close look at the type of scam that we see all year. We're talking about impersonation scams, and we see these in text messages, we see it in social messages, email, and also phone calls, and sometimes in social media as well. So how does impersonation scams, how do they work? Why do they work so well? I guess
I can speak to that.
Yeah, let's start with you.
Because we see a ton of that, and namely they're impersonating RBFCU a lot of the times. It's typically through phone calls. They'll call one of our members, posing typically to be from the RBFCU fraud department and asking them to verify a transaction. Seemingly normal. Those are things that we do every single day. But the difference is they then transition into your money is now frozen. You need to move it to another account. You need to withdraw it and take it to a Bitcoin ATM, which sounds silly, but does happen quite often, or go to the branch and withdraw funds or get a cashier's check and mail it. They get you to move your money in some, and they've gained that trust because they're acting as if they're RBFCU. That's typically what we see at the credit union. But impersonation can happen across the board. Law enforcement is one that's popped up recently where whether it's local law enforcement or the marshal's office calls and says you have a warrant out for your arrest, they're on the phone with you, they're again pushing for that urgency to get you to act without thinking. That's really what they're trying to do with every single one of these impersonation scams.
Yeah, we've seen those through the years, and with the Better Business Bureau, I'm sure you've seen quite a bit. What are some of the most common ones that you've seen?
Sure. Well, he mentioned a big word, the T words, trust. The bigger the person, celebrity, bigger the brand, the bigger the target is for them to impersonate. So you just go with the top 3 merchants, retailers, and they're going to be impersonated a lot more than, say, the guy down the street. They're going after everybody. They're going after anybody that has the presence. Your clergy, your church leaders. You mentioned law enforcement. People in high positions, they're doing their homework. Cyber criminals are doing their homework. They know who's in these positions. They can search the web and find out who's the CEO of a major company and try to get you to, again, perform an action, move money. Even if you're on the payroll, they might say, hey, it's the payroll department, we need you to do this action. It's getting incredibly crazy to see how many directions this goes. Now with deepfake, I mentioned AI, you just can't tell if their mouth is moving. There might be a deepfake video. So yeah, they just gain that trust, and once they're in, it gets dangerous.
All right, well, Brian, this one's for you.
Okay.
Tell us what you know about fraudsters pretend to be police, like we were going to talk about earlier, claiming that you owe fines or have warrants.
Right. Yeah. Like I was mentioning, it all boils down to the same thing. They're, again, like Jason said, trying to gain your trust and make you act without thinking. I think that's one of the biggest things is stop and think what you're doing. And if you have no reason to have a warrant out for your arrest, why would you have a warrant out for your arrest? Why would you be asked to pay anything if that's not something that would even make sense for you? That often people that get scammed with these type of things, that's exactly what happens. Is they're just acting without thinking.
Yeah, and playing on our emotions. As
Exactly.
a regular person, we don't want to be in trouble. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yep.
Well, help us understand how to spot and stop these particular scams.
Well, what we always say is, scams come in all different shapes and sizes like we've talked about, but the most important thing is don't give away your personal information unless you're the one who initiated the contact. Obviously, there's going to be times where you're opening an account, you're starting a relationship with a trusted source, but you're initiating that contact. That's when it's okay to give out your information. But if someone's calling you, for instance, your financial institution, I mentioned, posing to be the RBFCU fraud department, if we're calling you, we're not going to ask for your information. We're just simply going to validate transactions with you. Often they have another way that they gain a lot of trust is they have bits and pieces of information. They might have the last 4 of your social. They might have your address. They might have, obviously they have your phone number. It's a really good way to get you to think, well, they have this, and what they're trying to do is fill in those gaps. So if you think about kind of putting that all together, really just being cognizant of the information that you're giving away and making sure if someone's reaching out to you, you really shouldn't be giving away any information at all.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
Yeah.
Jason, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I agree.
You've heard it all, I guess.
Yeah.
Inbound, unsolicited, watch out. Meaning if you didn't ask for the information, it just came out of the blue, and they're asking for just information that you necessarily don't share all the time, then that should be your red flag.
Yeah.
During the holidays, we're busy, we're doing 10 different things. Don't let that guard down. Keep that guard up. In fact, make yourself act impulsively. Bounce it off someone you know, someone you trust. Have you seen this? I might be asked to do this. What do you think? That way they can kind of validate or help you out and say, don't do it.
And something we're seeing lately in the last few years, QR codes, of course, used to be a fun way to learn or to shop, go to a website. But now scammers are using them to steal your information or a scam, and it's called quishing. So I'm guessing like QR code and phishing at the same time. But yeah, we have definitely see those around. Yep. So Jason, we're going to start with you going first on this one. What can you tell us about this scam in particular and how to spot some of the red flags out there?
You can start.
Sorry, Jason.
Either or. I think we've both seen it, and it's just technology changes. Names change, but the pattern stays the same. They're just using QR codes. Back when in COVID, we were scanning a lot more to avoid contact, and everything from menus at your restaurant up to anything online. Scan this to go to take you somewhere. The problem is you don't know where that link is. It's embedded. It's masked. and you're not really checking before you enter the next website. So QR codes, extremely convenient, extremely dangerous, because again, we don't know what direction those are going. It could lead to a malicious website ready to download Trojans and stuff. So yes, they're good, they're convenient. I think I've seen it more in San Antonio in downtown parking scenarios when you're being asked to park.
Yes.
You scan the code, and a scammer, a cyber criminal, come along and simply just paste their own QR code over the parking attendant's code. So the legit one is covered. So instead, you're paying somebody else. You get towed. Tow company doesn't know what's going on either. So this scenario plays out a lot. We've seen this past 2 or 3 years already. So that's just one example. It could go several other ways too.
That's a scary example. So I guess be extra careful looking at that QR code sign, maybe.
Yeah, the
see if
signs,
it's been tampered
they
with.
can be manipulated. Yeah, roll your finger over to make sure there's not a separate sticker over it. There should be an 800 number, should be a number associated with that, but also check the website you're going to, that it's secure. It's got that little lock, the toolbar, that goes a long way helping. It's got some SSL protection, encryption. Those things will help you in the end.
Yeah, scary stuff,
Yeah.
Jason. Okay, and then Brian, are you seeing any activity in your world with the QR code scams as well?
Not too much. I think it goes back to the same things that we talked about previously with links, because really what it is, it's a link. It looks safer maybe because there's been so much education about not clicking on links, but a QR code is really the same thing. It's taking you to potentially to a malicious website, or trying to give away your personal information. So the same goes. Just make sure make the website you're going to is encrypted. Look for that padlock at the top. That's a huge way to know if the website is legitimate or not, and paying attention to the normal warning signs.
Okay, well, just definitely look out for that, all the time, but also this time of year, like you guys were saying, the holidays are here, so the scams are everywhere, like the fake online stores and those phony gift card deals. So let's talk about how to spot the red flags so we don't get caught up on this year. So we see a lot of those fake online stores offering popular gifts and some, like you said, unbelievable prices during the holidays. So what advice do we give consumers to help them spot and avoid these types of scams? Would you like to start, Jason?
Sure. Again, my 9-year-old, I think he's pretty savvy now, but he can spot grammatical errors and little things that trip you up, like there's a comma there shouldn't be, or there's a misspelling, or there's a punctuation problem. So things like that, that's usually step one. But again, cyber criminals using a lot of technology. They're getting better, and we're getting worse arguably at picking these up. So the first level is just check for those grammatical errors. They're using translation services many times. They're in-demand hot products that are sold out in stores. Guess what? Here it is on your social media feed. It popped up, and you visit the store, you'll get it tomorrow kind of scenario. That plays out a lot. Counterfeit websites, you get something, but it's not the real thing. The Labubu Lafufu issue came up a lot. I got a Lafufu instead, and they made a whole industry out of it. They're like, I got a Lafufu, so it's a counterfeit item. It's subpar. So those are incredibly popular this time of year online. I think it starts with social media. The teasers are there. They're throwing the bait out there. We're clicking. We're liking. They're getting into our social media feeds through friends and family, through Messenger, little things like that. So it's crazy dangerous right now.
Do you want to add before we move on to gift cards?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to mention was, with text messages in particular, pay attention to the number that it's coming from. If it's coming from a 10-digit number, that's a huge red flag. Not always. Some legitimate text messages still come, but what makes it safer if it comes from a short code, usually the 4, 5, or 6-digit codes that you'll see. Even if you have a doctor's appointment reminder, stuff like that, even those are coming from short codes more and more. They're a lot harder to mimic for the fraudsters. So that's a good thing to look out for. And I mentioned the toll road scams that we saw during the summertime. Those are even coming from like European phone numbers. I mean, again, just kind of looking at this at a high level, does this make sense? Why would I get a text message that I owe money for a toll from France? That doesn't make any sense, kind of trying to put it all together.
Yeah, it can be a scary coincidence sometimes if you had just traveled a toll road and you never have,
Yes.
And then you get that.
Yeah,
that.
and we don't know if we're on a toll road sometimes. If I'm out of town in Austin or Dallas, I'm like, did I actually accidentally go on a toll road?
Right?
So that doubt is in your mind. So it's tough.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be careful. Well, another big one here, of course, this time of year, gift card scams. They continue to be a big problem with scammers pressuring people to pay using gift cards. And Brian, I think we've talked about this a lot. People getting phone calls for that.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag as well. I mean, just gift card, it can go in a couple different ways. If you're being asked to pay for something with a gift card, that is a huge red flag. Typically it's going to be the normal means of transferring funds or using your card. Another thing is getting you to, going back to the impersonation scams, if you're being asked to purchase gift cards through some of those scams to protect yourself in some type of way, all of that's a scam. You're never going to be asked to purchase a gift card, or you have to pay with a gift card. Any of that is a huge red flag and something to keep an eye on.
And Jason, the Better Business Bureau always getting calls for this as well.
Good and bad news for gift cards. They're incredibly convenient. That's the good news. I mean, they're easy to get. You lose the face value of the card. So if you buy a $100 gift card, you're going to lose $100, and hopefully no more than that. Past that, it's not tied to your banking account. But the bad news, yes, they're easy to manipulate. Unfortunately, they can go into any store, a criminal, and take pictures, and they don't need the physical gift card to take the money out of it. They just need the digits, the codes. Once you activate it and load funds, they get the notification, and they're quick to pull that money out. So your gift recipient ends up with nothing in the end. Physical gift cards and digital gift cards they don't need the physical card to scam you anymore.
And likely, I guess we remind everybody that most businesses or energy companies or whatever, they're not going to ask you to pay for your bill with a gift card.
Right,
exactly.
right.
And then, like we had earlier with Tony, the story of Tony, holiday travel deals and also social media contests in the time of year, often seem too good to be true. So what steps should people take to verify these types of offers before committing to them?
The Secret Sister, Secret Santa, very popular with social media, gift exchanges, the rings. The problem is when you do it with people you don't know. You should keep it with family and friends. If you're going outside of that and using social media, you don't want to be the Debbie Downer. You don't want to be the person that says no thank you. So they're trying to get you to pay in, buy a gift, but then once you're in, the ring stops with one person. It takes one person to take that ring out, and it would be a cyber criminal probably. So more than likely you're going to fall on the Secret Sister scam. And it's illegal. It's a pyramid scheme. One person benefits, the rest don't. In the end, don't do it. Just use it for family and friends. And yeah, social media, it's the new Wild West, the new Wild West of scams.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, what about holiday travel and the social media?
Yeah, going back to what I said earlier, I mean, if it's too good to be true, if it seems to be good to be true, it probably is. I think that's a huge thing. And to add on to what Jason was saying about the account-to-account transfer, the P2P, using your Venmos and Zelles, make sure you know who's on the other end of that, because that fraudsters use those almost exclusively as far as transferring funds, and that's a way they get around the typical channels that we have where we're mitigating a lot of the fraud that happens is using some of those outside channels. So making sure that you know who's on the other end, you're not being told to transfer money to a person that you don't know.
And then this kind of might be covering everything we've talked about, but
Sure.
kind of what is the best way to take power away from criminals who are trying to scam us? And what are some tried and true tactics that work best?
We're adding guardrails, like when they bounce codes. They're asking you to verify, and I know it trips us up, and it's kind of like, oh, I need to bounce a code off my email or my phone. But it's there to help protect you, because it's there to verify it's really you making a purchase or something like that. So know that there's protection involved. We're moving in the right direction, but again, so are cyber criminals. They're right behind us, and they're ready to pounce, and they're watching the news. They know what's going on. They're ready to take advantage of what's happening in any scenario.
Yeah, I think getting away from just username and password to get into any website is the best thing. So Jason mentioned multi-factor authentication, where you get the 6-digit code to your, either to an app on your phone or texted to you. There's also passkeys, which are becoming more and more popular. That's an extremely safe way to access, because it's controlled by the biometrics in your phone. You have to use a Face ID to be able to get into it. That's becoming more and more popular, and is extremely safe too. That's a good way to get around the fraudsters.
Well, a lot of good information today and a lot of good reminders for some of our people at home. But just real quick, any last things you want to share with our viewers before we wrap up?
I would just like to reiterate what I said earlier, which is if you didn't initiate the contact, if someone's contacting you asking for information, that's a huge red flag, and that you really shouldn't be giving away any personal information if that's the case.
Obviously, inbound, unsolicited, watch out, because it's probably an attempt to separate you from your money or your information. We can talk about scams all day, unfortunately, so we're in that department. So if you see something, let us know as well. Report it up. You never know; it could be the missing puzzle piece that we need to put something together for a pattern.
No, absolutely, and thank you for keeping our viewers aware. And again, a big thank you to our panelists, Brian and Jason, for sharing their insight today. And before we go, here are a few quick takeaways from today's town hall. So scammers bank on us reacting fast, using our kindness or confusion to trick us. So they don't just go after the weak, they go after opportunities, which means anyone can be a target. So the best thing to do, pause, take a breath, and think before you act on anything that just doesn't feel right. So for more information, just tips out there, you can check out ksatcommunity.com.